Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the class on pericyclic reactions. Today we will start pericyclic reactions. Pericyclic reactions are very important reactions, uh, not only in point of CSR, but also when we look at the reaction chemistries. These are very important reactions that generate variety of compounds. So from the point of pharma industry, from the point of research, even from the point of CSR, pericyclic reactions are very important. Yeah, please take the notes along with me. I'll give the definitions, then followed by reactions. Pericyclic reactions are concerted reactions. Concerted means reactions which occur in single step. There may be multiple steps or multiple processes, multiple steps in the mechanism, but the reaction will occur in a single step. So there will be a formation of multiple bonds simultaneously in a single step. So those are called concerted reactions. That occur by way of a cyclic transition state in which more than one bond is formed or broken within the cycle. So pericyclic reactions will give us cyclic products, or the reverse. We can break the cyclic products into acyclic systems. There are three types of pericyclic reactions. The major classification is this. One, cycloaddition reactions. First one is cycloaddition reactions. Second category is electrocyclic reactions. And third category is sigmatropic reactions. From pericyclic reactions itself, we will be getting around 3 to 4 questions in CSR. So it means we will be getting around 15 marks. On an average, we will get 15 marks from pericyclic reactions. So it is very important in point of CSIR and the GATE exams. Why pericyclic reactions are important? Because these are all one, concerted reactions, because they give products in a single step, so that saves a lot of time and lot of energy. And these are highly stereoselective, so mostly they will give single product. Mostly they will give single product, so they are highly stereoselective. Then these are all green reactions. We don't need a solvent for the pericyclic reactions. Even sometimes we don't need any purification methods for the product. Okay, generally we need solvents to conduct the organic reactions, and after completion of the reaction, we need to purify it through some column chromatographies, right? But in a pericyclic reaction, we will be getting only a single product with a high stereoselectivity, and we don't need to do purification for this because we are getting only single product. There will be no byproducts and no wastage. So that is why these are all very, very important reactions. And most importantly, it is an atom economic reaction. When we used to talk about organic reactions, we used to talk about whether it is giving good yield or not. That means a reaction with 100% yield or 90% yield or 80% yield, something like that, it is very good reaction, right? But whereas in pericyclic reactions, we used to talk about atom economic. What is atom economic? All the atoms in the reactant will be reflected in product. That means not even a single atom will be lost from the reactants. That means whatever the amount of reactants we are using, all 100% of the atoms will be reflecting in product. So that means because there is no loss of single atom, these are called atom economic reactions. Of course, the yield is 100%. At the same time, we don't have any loss, right? For example, in an esterification reaction, we will be losing water, right? Water is a byproduct in an esterification reaction under acidic conditions, so we will be losing water. But even such type of small molecule eliminations will not be possible here. So all the atoms which are present in reactants will be reflected in products. So these are called atom economic reactions. So these are very highly efficient reactions. And two more important points regarding pericyclic reactions are they observe conservation of orbital symmetry. They observe conservation of orbital symmetry. So they will react with in-phase orbitals only. At the same time, their stereochemistry will be retained. The orbital stereochemistry will be retained in the products also. And second important point is stereochemistry will be retained. That means stereochemistry of reactants will be retained in the products also. So we observe orbital conservation of orbital symmetry. At the same time, we also observe the same stereochemistry in the products. So the stereochemistry of products is similar to reactants. Okay. So when we talk about the orbital symmetry or stereochemistry of reactants and products, they are governed by orbital orientations. So all these stereochemical considerations are governed by orbital orientations. So when we look at the orbitals in the reactants, we can easily predict the stereochemistry of the product. So that means when we are learning pericyclic reactions, it is important for us to learn the orbital symmetries, their orientations, then how bonding formation takes place between orbitals, how they will overlap. So these points are very, very important in pericyclic reactions. So we will start with the molecular orbitals for alkenes. Okay, in pericyclic reactions, we use alkenes, either uh, uh, ethene or butadiene or hexatriene or something like that. Okay, so conjugated systems. So it is important for us to learn about the molecular orbitals of these alkene systems. Okay, so we will start with simple molecule ethene. We will start with the molecular orbitals of this simple ethene. Right. In an ethene molecule, there are two carbons in the double bond. So each carbon is sp2 hybridized. So three orbitals are involved in sigma bonding. One orbital is involved in pi bonding. So each carbon will have one pi orbital. This carbon will have one pi orbital. This carbon will also have one pi orbital. So these two unhybridized pi orbitals will involve in pi bonding. So when we are talking about the molecular orbitals of alkenes, we are talking about these pi bonding molecular orbitals, because there are two pi orbitals which are contributed from each carbon. We will get two such molecular orbitals. Okay, so these are two carbons. Each carbon is contributing one pi orbital. As you know, the number of molecular orbitals which are generated must be equal to the number of atomic orbitals which are involved, right? So here, because we are using two pi orbitals, we must have two molecular orbitals. So out of them, half will be bonding molecular orbitals, half will be anti-bonding molecular orbitals. If it is an even number, then half will be bonding, half will be anti-bonding. If it is an odd number, then one minus odd number minus one. So one will be non-bonding orbital. The remaining will be divided into bonding and anti-bonding. So here, these are represented as psi1, psi2, so something like this, because we are having only two. I'll represent it with psi1, psi2. Then in the middle we have energy, mean energy level, where the orbitals below to this are bonding molecular orbitals, the orbitals above to this are bonding molecule, anti-bonding molecular orbitals. If we have odd number, one orbital will be lying exactly on this line, which is called non-bonding orbital, which is called non-bonding orbital. So the electrons here are called bonding molecular orbitals. The orbitals which are above this line are called anti-bonding molecular orbitals. Anti-bonding molecular orbitals. Then we want to represent them. We used to represent with positive lobes of the orbitals with the positive and negative signs. If they are bonding, both orbitals must overlap with similar phase. I used to represent like this. You can take positive minus here, but I used to draw like this. I'll fill one lobe, I'll make it, I will leave it empty, the other lobe, so that it is easy for us to understand. Okay, right. So it is a bonding molecular orbital. So that means in the psi1, all orbitals must overlap with the same phase. So this is positive lobe, this is also positive lobe. In the bonding molecular orbital, there will be no nodes. Whereas if you increase the energy of the molecular orbitals, that means when you go to the next higher molecular orbital, we will have one node. Sorry, what is node? Node is a point. If you have read about waves. What is a node or what is a nodal plane? Node is a point where the amplitude of the wave is zero. Node is a point where the amplitude of the wave is zero. Similarly, here that means in orbitals, what is node? Node is a point where the probability of finding an electron is zero. If there are no, if we don't have electrons at that point, so that point it is called as a node or nodal point or nodal plane. If it is a plane, it is called nodal plane. So when we have a node in the molecular orbital, that means that one orbital, if it is in positive lobe, then the other orbital must be in negative lobe. The other orbital must have negative lobe. So that means below the bond we have positive. So these are in phase orbitals, these are out of phase orbitals. These are in phase orbitals, these are out of phase orbitals. So similarly, if you have more number of orbitals, we must arrange one node. If you go to psi 3, there will be two nodes. If you go to psi 4, there will be three nodes, something like this. When we are increasing the energy of the orbitals, the number of nodal planes or nodal points will also increase accordingly. Okay, right. uh, in ethene molecule we have only one pi bond, so that means we have only a pair of pi electrons, that means two electrons. So we will fill the two electrons in psi 1, uh, whereas in psi 2 it is empty. Okay, so in the electronic configuration of ethene molecule, the psi 1 molecular orbital will have two electrons, psi 2 is empty. Then when we look at the symmetry properties, symmetry properties are very, very important in molecular orbital diagrams. So we must understand what is the symmetry of these orbitals. So when we want to learn about the symmetry of these orbitals, there are two types of symmetries here. One is mirror plane, another one is axis. Okay, one is mirror plane, another one is axis. So I'll explain both of them, the symmetry properties. What is a plane? Mirror plane. We take a mirror plane and then we will see whether it is symmetrical or asymmetrical. So when we look at the mirror plane, what is mirror plane? Imagine a plane something like this, because we are representing them in a vertical direction, so you can take it like this. So a plane which is just at the middle of the molecular orbital. Okay, so if the two sides, that means for example, take a mirror like this, then if this orbital and this orbital are representing like the same, then we can say it is a mirror image of this, right? So that means if you have a mirror like this, then what we will see, whatever it is there, it will be reflected in the mirror, right? So whatever it is there, we will only see that picture in the mirror. Similarly, if you imagine a plane here, and if you see the same, exactly whatever it is there, if you see it here, then it is called mirror plane. Then mirror plane exists. For example, you take the mirror plane here. Here we have positive lobe, whereas here we have negative lobe. That means it is not similar to the first orbital. So that means here we don't have mirror plane, but here we have mirror plane. So when we have mirror plane, what we say, it is a symmetry element. It is symmetrical. If we don't have a mirror plane, then it is called asymmetrical. If we have a mirror plane, it is called symmetrical. If you don't have a mirror plane, it is called asymmetrical. So according to mirror plane, uh, 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 the two molecular orbitals in ethene, first one is symmetrical orbital, second one is asymmetrical orbital. Okay, then I'll also discuss the symmetrical properties according to axis. That means you take an axis, then rotate it. For example, I'll take an axis like this. That means an axis perpendicular to the plane. So an axis perpendicular to the plane, then I'll rotate it 180 degrees. Say for example, I'll be rotating it 180 degrees in this fashion. Okay, so I'm taking an axis perpendicular to the plane of the molecule, then I am rotating. Then what is happening? This lobe, positive lobe, when I rotate it 180 degrees, what happens? This lobe comes here. This lobe comes here. So that means it is exactly reversing, right? So when I apply an axis, that means an axis with which is perpendicular to the plane of the molecule, and when I rotate it 180 degrees, the first orbital psi1 is giving asymmetric. So before operation and after operation of this axis rotation, psi1 is not same, right? So before rotation, positive lobes are distributed above the bond, whereas after rotation, when I rotate it like this, positive lobes will come below the bond. So that means before and after rotations, the orbitals are not same. So that is why it is an asymmetry orbital. So with respect to axis, it is an asymmetric orbital. Now, if I do the same thing here, if I rotate it 180 degrees, then what happens? This positive lobe will come here, this negative lobe will come here. That means the positive lobe is occupying another positive lobe, the negative lobe is occupying another negative lobe. That means before operation and after operation, I don't see any change in the molecular orbital. So that means according to axis, the psi2 is symmetric. Psi2 is symmetric. Okay, so this is how we need to understand the symmetrical properties. Yeah, please take the notes. So this is a node. If we have two orbitals side by side like this with the same lobe, these are called in phase orbitals. In phase orbitals. Whereas in the antibonding orbital, we see out of phase orbitals, right? So I'm not writing it. If I write everything, it becomes very clumsy. So I'm not representing it. Yeah, please take a snapshot. I want to change this page. Yeah, one more point I missed here is the highest occupied molecular orbital, which is called as HOMO. The lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, which is called LUMO. Highest occupied, highest occupied molecular orbital, HOMO. Lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. Lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. So the definition may not be clear with this. So we will explain the definitions in the next example. Right? Okay. I'm changing this page. Now we will see an example of three carbon systems. So that is allyl cation as well as allyl anion. Because there are three carbons here in allyl cation, so three carbons will contribute one electron, one p orbital each. So that means there are three p orbitals which are involved in molecular orbital formation. So we must have three molecular orbitals. We must have three molecular orbitals. So I will try to represent them here. When we want to name them, it is called psi1, it is called psi2, it is called psi. Then how do we represent them? Because there are three orbitals, so we must write three orbitals. Right. So the psi1 will always be uh, in phase orbital overlapping. So in psi1 we will have all the positive lobes in a phase, in the same phase, right? And here we don't have nodes, so nodes are zero. Here we have one node, we will have two nodes. Of course, when we fill the electrons, here we have only a double bond, so 2 pi electrons. It is a positive charged carbon, so no electrons. So we have only 2 electrons. At the same time, uh, the mean energy level. So here it will be along the side 2. The mean energy level will be along the side 2 because we have odd number of molecular orbitals. So one will be at the non-bonding level. So it is called non-bonding molecular orbital. Non-bonding MO. It is non-bonding MO. Okay. Then it is below to this line are bonding molecular orbitals, above to this line are anti-bonding molecular orbitals. So we have three molecular orbitals altogether. So one will be non-bonding, then remaining uh, uh, in the remaining half will be bonding, half will be anti-bonding. So in the three, one will be non-bonding, remaining two, uh, half of the two, one bonding, another one anti-bonding. We have only two electrons here, so we will place the two electrons in psi1, psi2 and psi3 are empty. Then when we want to represent the phases of the orbitals, that means positive and negative lobes, the first one must always be in phase. That means all orbitals will have same phase. Then when we go to the next level, psi2, we have one node. Where should we place this? Now, when you want to place the nodes, they must be distributed symmetrically. They must be distributed symmetrically. Here, if you want to distribute it symmetrically, like as in the previous cases, we cannot place it here or we cannot place it here, right? If we place it here, one side one orbital, other side two orbitals. If you want to place the node symmetrically, then exactly we need to place it in the middle. Exactly, we need to place it in the middle. So when there is a node, what is the node? Where the probability of finding electrons is 0. That means at this orbital we don't have any electrons. If there are no electrons, then what is the orbital? What is orbital? Orbital is nothing but a three-dimensional arrangement where electrons are there. If there are no electrons, there will be no orbital. So that is why we don't have an orbital here. In psi2 we don't have an orbital here, so just for practice I have given it, but from next example we don't do that, right? So here we don't have any orbital in the middle. We have only two orbitals. One will be positive because we are having a node, we must change the phase, so this will be positive. So above the bond positive, below the bond positive. And here we have two nodes. You need to distribute that nodes symmetrically. We have three orbitals, two nodes. Of course, it is easy. We can place a node after each orbital. So if you take it as a positive lobe, because we have a node after this orbital, then its phase will be reversed. And again we have a low node here, so again the phase will be reversed, something like that. Then what is HOMO and LUMO? See, what is HOMO? HOMO is highest occupied molecular orbital. Here we have two electrons which are placed in psi2. So this is the highest occupied. So that means here we have only single orbital which is occupied. So we can take it as a HOMO. But if you have more than one orbital, the highest level occupied molecular orbital, that is what is called HOMO. Here we have two unoccupied orbitals. These two are empty. Then what is LOMO? Lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. So out of the psi2 and psi3, the lowest empty orbital is psi2. So that is why it is called, psi2 is called LUMO. So this is HOMO, this is LUMO. When we talk about the symmetry properties, right? So according to mirror plane, according to axis, according to axis. So according to mirror plane, yes, it is symmetrical. According to mirror, it is asymmetric. According to mirror, yes, it is symmetric. You can you can just try this. According to axis, when we rotate it, the positive lobes will come below the bond. So it becomes asymmetry. When we rotate it 180 degrees, then this positive lobe will occupy this place. That means it is symmetric. Of course, it is asymmetric. Okay. Then how do we compare it with the allyl anion? Allyl anion, of course, we have only 3 carbons. So that means molecular orbital pictures, so it will be same. Okay, so you need to write it again here. Then we need to distribute the electrons. When we want to distribute the electrons in a propyl anion, we have 2 electrons in pi bond, 2 electrons in negative charge. So altogether we have 4 electrons. 2 electrons in psi 1, 2 electrons in psi 2, and psi 3 is empty. So psi 1, psi 2, psi 3. I'm not writing the molecular orbitals again, but you need to draw them. So psi 1 is filled with 2 electrons, psi 2 is filled with 2 electrons, psi 3 is empty. So in case of allyl anion, psi 2 is HOMO. So out of the 2 filled orbitals, psi 1 and psi 2, psi 2 is the highest occupied molecular orbital. Psi 2 is the highest occupied molecular orbital. So psi 2 is called HOMO in case of allyl anion. Psi 3 is called LUMO. Psi 3 is called LUMO in case of allyl anion. Okay, yeah, please take the notes. Because psi 1 is HOMO and psi 2 is LUMO in allyl anion, which is similar to ethene. So we can say that it matches with ethene. Matches with ethene. That means allyl anion and ethene reactivities are similar. Whereas this fellow, allyl anion, it matches with the butadiene. It matches with the butadiene. So because of lack of space, I have just written the formula. Please take the notes.